Hello everyone, it is I, Aiden, and while normally I'd go for like a really hyper-casual style where I just don't really put much effort into it, just kind of like the channel where I just dump just like what I'm thinking that day, I wanted to go for something that's a little bit more high effort, just cause I kind of felt like it, you know, just like that sudden tinge of inspiration, and I figured that the best way to sort of start with a format like this would be to go over something that I consumed a year ago, which gave me that tinge of inspiration a year ago when I needed it most. Show Me Your Love is a manga that means a lot to me, and because when I first read it, I was really struggling with motivation in regards to my creativity. I thought that I wouldn't really create much ever again, because I had this defunct Pokemon channel that I just hated uploading to. It just wasn't fun anymore. But I've always had a real soft spot for anime and manga, and because that's where a majority of my passion just comes from and stems from. I love anime and manga, and this was a manga that really brought that motivation back for me, and it's for that reason that it's a manga that means a lot to me, and also why I'm disappointed with the way that it ended, which is something I'll get to a bit later in this presentation. But firstly, I want to start with what made the story so good, because I mean, it had to have a good start, right? And yeah, it did. I really liked the start of this manga, because like, I just like look at all the notes I have on screen. Good characters, compelling love triangle drama, great use of themes. It kind of had everything going for it, and which it makes sense too, because it's like the follow-up to Senko-san for Rimukuro, and Senko-san is one of my favorite anime and manga of all time. I first watched that when I was in high school. I was just like some scared, anxious kid, just constantly, right? Watching Senko-san, kind of this dumb fox girl just saying it's okay, daijoubu da yo, it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to me at the time. So it's a manga and an anime that I hold very dear to me, and it's as a result of this that I picked up his next manga when it started publishing. Well, probably no, about a year after it. Yeah, about a year after it started publishing. I started reading this in 2024. It started publishing in 2023. And as a follow-up, I think it's really good. Like, I really like the setup that they have going on. Shijo is this prodigy mangaka who absolutely loves making stuff, and also, but at the same time, has sacrificed every other part of her life to make manga. Which, it's kind of an interesting parallel to Senko-san in a way, where its main character, Nakano, also gave up everything in his life for his work. But the difference with Nakano is that he hates his job, while Shijo supposedly should love manga, but because manga is her entire life, she gets into a slump, and that's where the story starts. And I think that's such a fascinating way to start the story, and it's a start that, fuck man, I relate to a lot. Like, this was literally the position I was in about a year before I started reading this manga, and like getting to see her story is something that it really meant a lot to me. I was really pleasantly surprised by just how invested I got in this story, and the other characters are quite good too. Other characters are Karasuma and Fushimi. Karasuma seems sort of like your generic male MC. He's a bit on the shy, nerdy side, but he's also very reliable, very nice. The kind of guy who generally wants to do the right thing. Is also very hardworking and diligent. So like he's not quite one of those loser MCs. He's on like that perfectly fine middle ground where like he's flawed enough to where he can have a character arc, but he's also not enough of a loser where you're like, why is he getting bitches? So like very strong MC for what he is, at least. But of course, I do feel like he generally gets overshadowed by Shijo, which makes sense. Shijo is the main character of the story. The other character is Fushimi, sort of like this closeted otaku. Unlike Karasuma and Shijo, just kind of own it. So a big part of the three characters though is their love triangle dynamic. Shijo is in love with Karasuma because of how reliable, handy he is, the way that he's able to help her not only form that connection, but also with her own manga, just kind of giving her more time to breathe, you know. So like, her falling in love with him makes a lot of sense, and then Karasuma starts the story with feelings for Fushimi, since they both are able to share that interest, since she's someone who is able to provide company to Karasuma. And it's not like Karasuma's a complete loser, but even then, like, I feel like most guys can relate to the situation where, like, if they ended up meeting a fellow female otaku, why wouldn't you fall head over heels for them? Which is funny, because I've had a situation like that in my own life, and I didn't end up falling for her. Who knows, maybe my taste is just bad. Maybe it's pee-pee poo-poo. Guys, I'm the funniest guy in the world. And then Fushimi's in love with Shijo, because she loves her manga. She thinks that Shijo herself is just really adorable, because like Shijo's like your textbook klutz sort of character. Because it's kind of like Taiga, but without the tsundere. I guess is the best way I can describe Shijo's character. She's really fun. I like clumsy characters like her. They're cute. Yeah, so like because of this love triangle though, there's all this drama at the start of the story about where Shijo is trying to hook up Karasuma and Fushimi so she can get more motivation for her manga, because her manga is a romance. So she's basically cucking herself throughout the first half of the manga. It's like genuinely fucking sad. A lot of panels of her like crying and shit over realizing that she's kind of fucking herself over. But then, of course, over the course of the story, Karasuma spends more time with Shijo, starts wondering if his feelings for Shijo are more than what initially led on, because that's kind of what the assumption is going in, right? Oh, Shijo and Karasuma are gonna end up together, and Fushimi's kind of like the wrench preventing that from happening. But so that's what the first half of the manga kind of goes off of the assumption with, and there's a lot of really good drama based off of that assumption, and the fact that what ends up happening just kind of is very unpredictable. And like it's just really fun to see these characters interact, see them try to figure this shit out, and it's all stuff that I had described in my last video. I'd say the main other thing that I described in my last video that I really like about this manga is the theming. This story is genuinely decently deep, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that Shijo is someone who creates and loves creating, but doesn't do anything else. And the reason why she ends up in that slump is kind of obvious to me now looking in, but it wasn't until after reading the manga that it just clicked for me, which is the reason why she was in the slump is because she doesn't have anything else. Where the fuck are you gonna get anything creatively if you don't have a life outside of what you're creating? And when I realized that, I realized, fuck man, I had to stop thinking of my YouTube channels as like the only thing that's a part of me. Because it's not the only thing that's a part of me. I have other stuff in my life. I got a job, I got friends, I got family, and like I love all these other aspects of my life as well. Well, maybe not my job when I was reading this manga. I like my job now, but well, like my friends and family and stuff, just shit that I took for granted for so long in my life. This was kind of the first. It was kind of reading this manga and then writing about it that made me realize that I have taken a lot of stuff for granted, and that I should focus on that stuff, because it's only through focusing on that stuff that I'm actually gonna get ideas for making truly excellent works. And that's why this manga meant so much for me, because it was after I read this manga, made that video, that I kind of realized the kind of videos that I wanted to end up making, because I didn't want to make half-assed slop on a weekly basis, because no creative can really make something truly excellent in just a week or two. So that's why I have sort of my longer hiatuses with my main channel, because creating a genuinely excellent video takes work. That's part of also why I'm making this channel the way it is too, so I can kind of get a similar feel to what I have on the main channel, just in a more casual format that's a lot easier to produce, because I understand that a lot of viewers do enjoy having more background noise-worthy stuff to listen to. I'm more than happy to provide that, because I'm a fucking nerd and I love yapping. If what I've said so far doesn't make that obvious enough, I really, really, really love talking about anime and manga. This shit's fucking... It's one of my favorite things, just in general, to do. Anyway, so later on in the manga, there ends up being a sort of plot twist. A lot of things just end up, coming into course, and we get the reveal that, yep, this is a polyamorous manga now. This shift was controversial as fuck when it first published. Like, the comment sections on, like, totally illegal manga site were, they were, so a lot of them were accepting, a lot of them were also really vicious, though. It was really interesting to see. So, like, I'm sure you can read my notes. I like Yuri. This is completely unrelated. But one time I was having this argument with a guy who didn't like Yuri. And I'm like, how the fuck can you not like Yuri? Is two of the things you like kissing each other? Like, hello? The appeal of Yuri is so fucking obvious. Anyway, so like the shift toward the three having a polyamorous relationship, just like, it completely came out of nowhere. I was not expecting this at all, because love triangle story logic always dictates that the main character, that two of the characters had to end up together, and one of the characters ends up having to get fucked over. But the idea with this manga that I thought was really interesting is the showcase that, hey, all three of you guys love each other, just like in general. Like, Shijo loves Karasuma and Fushimi, and vice versa for the other two characters as well. So like, fuck it, let's try this, see if it works. And it's really interesting. And like this isn't like judging off of like my opinions on polyamory in general, because like in real life relationships, I can agree that polyamory doesn't usually work out. But I'm also open-minded enough to see the topic be handled in fiction, and I honestly think that this manga handled it pretty well. There's a lot of really cute, wholesome scenes of the three loving each other, and it's like, it's cute. It's really sweet. It's really wholesome. No, it's fun to witness, like just these three teenagers struggling with a lot of aspects of life, and just trying to fuck it, we're gonna tackle it all together. We're not gonna have any conflicts or bullshit drama. We're just gonna go at it together, and it's really beautiful. I was very pleasantly surprised by how much I actually ended up enjoying this dynamic. It's cute, it's wholesome, it makes sense, it's very unique. There are very few manga that go for a route like this. And I love Yuri, so, yeah. like, I feel like my only real complaint is that we didn't really end up getting that much of this. This was my reaction to the ending. Yeah, I had a lot to say, because this is what I posted on my Discord server, which you can join through the Patreon if you want. And yeah, I was very disappointed. Show Me Your Love is ending next chapter. Not gonna lie, this feels completely abrupt and is genuinely quite disappointing. Like, I get that Shijo's arc is technically complete at this point, but so many ideas are just left unexplored. Like, every character still has something they could do. Karasuma, despite having a published manga, could have easily had a story about how he feels being a mangaka, a story that could have brought him closer to Shijo. For as cute as their romance is, it's also one that I feel like didn't really get developed enough. This wasn't an issue at all when I assumed the story would keep going, since it seemed like it'd be a slow burn. Like, even though they have mutual feelings for each other, it doesn't really feel like they all fully know each other yet, and extra time would have easily solved that issue. Fushimi also got a character arc, but it's also one that easily could have had more added to it. Her love of music kind of gets shoehorned into the plot about halfway through, and we get to see it explored to a decent effect when Karasuma helps her make an MV. We also get a cute little arc of her opening up to the members of her band that she never could be herself around. Her character has the same problem that everyone else has, which is that the building blocks to start her story were executed really well, but ultimately nothing will be able to come of her character if it ends in just a chapter. There's so many ideas for where it could have kept going. Given how it's a love triangle where all three characters end up being in a relationship together, I really like the idea of them working together in their creative pursuits. Sure, we kinda got to see the origin, or the idea of that happening, but we never got to see it properly because the manga's ending way too fucking soon. Like, imagine how fucking adorable these characters would have been together if we got more time to see the development. Genuinely, I'm so fucking disappointed. I really loved this manga. And while the manga is definitely still good, I can't help but find it insane that it only got one chapter left when the story has so much potential. Did Ramukuro just not have any ideas left? I doubt it, considering he'll still publish a Senko-san chapter every year despite it technically being finished. I'm just baffled. And that was my first impression, and just like, I was furious because all the things that the story had set up were to only really be good assuming that the characters actually got to have that development, actually got to have that time together where they get to become closer with each other, but it just doesn't have the time to happen because the manga ends at chapter 40. Like, really? The confession happened at like chapter 20. Why are we ending only halfway after that? The story is only just started. Like, there's still so much more you can go into with this. These characters still have so much more story left to tell, but none of them are able to tell that story, and it's just baffling. It was really, really disappointing. Like, because I really liked this manga, I had so much faith in it, so much trust in it, and it just didn't. And it just ended before it could really properly end, and yeah, I'm just disappointed. I'm just disappointed. But there is one more thing to add on, and it's that like, after I did that ramble on Discord, my friend Plasma decided to pop in with sort of an addendum just to kind of give some level of context as to how emotions like these come up. So I figure I'll read that, since that'll sort of cool off some of the emotions for a bit, and then I'll go on to what I think of the manga despite what is said here. So that's sort of like the ending for this, video. Reading is weird. You want to see a conclusion, but you also want to keep reading. Sometimes, when you finish a long story, you feel a sort of emptiness. For ages, you were having a lot of fun reading, but due to the author's decision, one that is out of your control, you suddenly don't have anything. It's not like chapters start coming out more slowly, then it ends. They keep coming out with the same schedule, then boom, it's over. We place so much trust into someone we don't know to produce something we enjoy. For all we know, it could turn out to be horrible, but we still place that faith even with the best stories and the best endings. There will always be a sense of sadness that a story is over. That's why when a story ends, we want the ending to be good. The last memory of a story is likely the end. So you want it to be great. You want a story to continue, but you also want it to see its conclusion. These two cannot coexist together. You don't make the characters, you don't write the stories. It's all out of your control. A reader and a writer have different perspectives. A reader may have different thoughts to a writer. Reading as opposed to writing is so much different. Since you don't have a clue where the story will go or when it'll go, questions start to form. Maybe different ones to what the writer thinks. We all think differently after all. And only consuming the final product will give you a different interpretation. I think this is accelerated when you consider that this isn't a book, but instead a manga. Normally, authors are given a lot of time to craft a masterpiece, revising their piece multiple times to change things. Mangaka are not like that. At most, they're given a month to make a chapter, and once they make it, they can't change it. That doesn't even mention that they also had to draw the chapter. When you read a chapter, you have a month to let questions you have fester in your head. Mangaka can only think about the next chapter. After all, it's their livelihood. Despite that, they may still think the same things as you, but maybe they can only foresee answering that question years down the line, especially if you consider that he is a monthly mangaka. Fumikuro started Senko-san in 2017, and from what I can tell, as soon as the main story finished, he had started Show Me Your Love right after. That means he's been working for 8 years, and making stories is mentally taxing, especially when time constraints come into play. I'm sure you know better than me how exhausting it could be. It can be tough sometimes to remember that there's a face behind a story. Of course, you know that there's an author, but when you only really know them through their story, you forget that behind every story is a creator, one who breathes air as we do, one that feels emotions too. There can be a multitude of reasons a story can end: burnout, boredom, health issues. Remember, you started reading Show Me Your Love not that long ago, but for Remukuro, it's been his life for 2 years now. It's hard to keep the same spark as when you started, especially when it's your first story, where your other one went on for 8 years. Sometimes the creator might feel like if they carry on, it'll only get worse. A writer without their passion will never be able to create a masterpiece, and you had to make a story to make others care, and you had to care about a story to make others care too. So, that sort of statement sort of just kind of gives context into what sort of state that Remukuro could have been in when deciding to end the manga when he did. Maybe he was the plan all along, but maybe burnout or health issues or boredom did come up. Who knows? I will say though that despite gaining more understanding, and despite the fact that I can definitely sympathize with being in a situation where you just don't give a fuck anymore, because that's a situation that I've been in myself as a creative. It happens pretty constantly for creatives. Maybe Remukuro saw the mixed reception to the polyamorous relationship and decided that, hey, maybe the ideas I have aren't quite good enough. Maybe I just want to move on to something else. It happens, but at the same time, that doesn't really change how I feel about the ending. Sort of, my closing thoughts, I guess just in conclusion, I think that the manga's ending was abrupt. It should have gone on for like another 40 chapters. I think like an 80 chapter story still would have been on the shorter end, but it would have been enough time to understand these characters properly, because truthfully, I don't really feel like I get these characters the same way I was expecting to when I started reading the manga. A lot of that initial excitement and enthusiasm that I had surrounding the manga was under the promise, I guess not really promise, but under the trust that I had that the story would be able to pay off. A lot of it was being set up. I'd say that to an extent it does. The confession scene was really nice, but just kind of like after that, it seems like he just kind of ran out of ideas. It's not to say that the chapters post-confession were bad. They were still good. I don't think they were as good, but they were still good. It's just that there wasn't that much left after that, and it's disappointing. So I guess the only real thing I have left to discuss here is just kind of like why this video is so much different compared to everything else I've released on the Uncut channel. And it's because I've been doing like the very hyper-casual tier list style videos for over a year now, and frankly, it's just something that I don't really have motivation for it anymore. It's a format that I kept up for a while, but I just kind of stopped having fun doing it, and I figured I'd have more fun increasing the effort of these videos a bit more, making follow-up videos to the main channel video, making review-style videos about stuff that I just finished. You know, just like, in general, I want to take this channel a little bit more seriously. I'm gonna start pushing it a bit more, toward a direction of higher quality, but that also doesn't mean that the videos aren't going to be casual, because I still want them to be relatively casual. So yeah, that's all I really have for today. Oh yeah, I guess I can close out of the presentation and do just one last thing. I do have a Patreon, so if you want to donate, that's an option. Yeah, I want to thank my Phantom tier patron Squizzy, and my Confidant tier patrons Regimania and Eternum. But that's all I really have for now, so I'll see you guys next time.